Welcome back to Punk Rock Theologian. Today I had to deliberately zoom out a little bit because normally I don't much care about what shirt I'm wearing, but today I want to talk to you about something called Gate Zero. This is a new video game that's still in development that seeks to bring the world of the New Testament into a 3D open world playable thing. Last I checked, you can't even get a demo of it to play it yet. I'll tell you up front, I'm not directly connected to this. I'm not getting any kind of kickback. They don't sponsor me. Frankly, I sponsored them. That's how I got the t-shirt. I just funded them on Kickstarter because I think this idea is phenomenal. Actually, for a couple different reasons. One is just as the Bible and theology nerd that I am, I think it's really cool how they're putting so much care and intentionality into making this as accurate as possible. They're working with historians and Bible scholars and people to get everything they can right in this world. I've seen stuff of how they're working on the different clothing styles and the architecture and the landscape, and to make sure that the culture works in the game like it actually would have in first century Israel. I honestly don't know a ton of details about the gameplay itself. I don't know what character you play as or what the story is going to be. I mean, I know the Bible, so I know the gist of what the story is going to be. I'm pretty sure you don't play as Jesus or anything like that. This is putting it in the context of observing this stuff happen as an outsider. I'm not certain how the game really works and how you will win the game per se, but I just love that it's something that you get to interact in a 3D realistic environment with what has so often been called the greatest story ever told. Which leads to the more important reason why I think this is awesome. This is one of the great things about Christianity, that it's the core message that matters the most. Just like we see in 1 Corinthians 15, 3 to 4, Paul says, I passed on to you what was most important and what had also been passed on to me. Christ died for our sins, just as the scriptures said. He was buried and was raised from the dead on the third day, just as the scriptures said. That's what matters. The fact that Jesus died and rose is what changes everything. All of Christianity hinges on the resurrection. The fact that it's just as the scriptures said and there's prophecy that fits into all this is really significant and really cool, but the prophecies are meaningless unless it actually happened. What matters is the event of the resurrection. That is the key message. But how we tell that message can change. It can adapt to different cultures, different contexts, to different audiences. That's what you see Paul do in Acts chapter 17 when he goes to Athens. It starts out in verse 22 saying, People of Athens, I see that you are very religious. As I was going through your city and looking at all the things that you worship, I found an altar with the words, To an unknown God. You worship this God, but you don't really know him. So I want to tell you about him. He goes on to share the same key message of Jesus and the resurrection, but he puts it in their culture, in their context. He quotes their own philosophers and poets. He's putting it in terms they can connect to and relate with. This was always Paul's style. It's exactly what he describes in 1 Corinthians 9, starting at verse 19. He said, Even though I am a free man with no master, I've become a slave to all people to bring many to Christ. When I was with the Jews, I lived like a Jew to bring the Jews to Christ. When I was with those who follow the Jewish law, I too lived under that law. Even though I'm not subject to the law, I did this so I could bring Christ to those who are under the law. When I'm with the Gentiles who do not follow the Jewish law, I too live apart from the law so that I can bring them to Christ. But I do not ignore the law of God, I obey the law of Christ. When I'm with those who are weak, I share their weakness, for I want to bring the weak to Christ. Yes, I try to find common ground with everyone, doing everything I can to save some. I do everything to spread the good news and share in its blessings. This is exactly what the Gate Zero team is doing. They're entering into the gaming world to reach gamers. They're putting the message of Jesus into their culture, into their context, in something that they will connect with and relate to without even necessarily knowing what it is. I am positive that there will be many people that this game is the only Bible they're ever going to read. But if they can find the truth of Jesus by playing a video game, then God bless Gate Zero. I think that is worth supporting, and that's why I chose to do it. If you know a gamer that needs Jesus, I urge you to go to gatezero.game and check it out. See if it's something you could support too. Let's bring the life changing message of Jesus to a culture that hasn't really had it presented to them before. Because Jesus told us to go to all people and share this message. And whether you get excited about Gate Zero or not, let's keep finding ways to adapt this message to new people, to put it in a context that people can relate to instead of expecting them to fit into the church box. Jesus is relevant to everyone. If anyone out there doesn't think the Bible is relevant to them, that's our fault. Let's fix that.